when you're singing that role, I mean, are you possessed by it? I mean, does something, people often, dancers talk about muscle memory, in which they don't have to do the counts anymore. Is it the same happen for singers?
Yes. I mean, I switch off immediately afterwards. You know, when I've screamed, I'm ready for a pint, and that's it. The show's over. But whilst I'm in that thing, I'm not nice to know. I mean, I want to make Zerlina's life difficult. I want to observe her, as I have done on several occasions, and just make her uncomfortable. You know, and wonder where she's going next, or where I'm coming from next. Literally coming from next. All of those things, yes, it does haunt me. There's something strange about the piece. I've always felt. I was talking to an American girl in Chicago just the other day, whose husband is currently singing Mazzetto at the City Opera, and I just said, look, he's going to be singing it at some point, and I said, it's the cemetery scene. You've got to look not at what's written in the cemetery scene, but what's not written in the cemetery scene, the things in between the lines. And she said, what do you mean? I said, I have no idea. I do have an idea. I mean, there's just something weirdly sinister about that whole area, that it was necromancy and everything else. He knew that this was an uncomfortable place for Leporello to come into, and he relishes that fact, and makes him squirm in being there, and all of that devilishness is what's so wonderful about playing the role.
Is Almaviva nearly as complicated as that, or is there something fairly straightforward about it?
No, I think it's much more straightforward. The problem with him is, or that character is the droit de seigneur, this overriding right to be who he is and what he does. And he's something of a foolish man, but the music that's written for him is very strong. It's very powerful. So fool or not, I mean, he has a backbone of steel in there at times. The trouble is that Susanna walks into his life and and he can't help himself, and she twists around her little finger, and. It's a most interesting role. I mean, it hasn't been in my life for quite some time, and it would be interesting to revisit it now, perhaps, and you know, rather than strut around the stage, just sit down and observe things a little more.
You I think sang it here in the house with Carl Böhm.
Yes.
In the pit. What was that like?
Slow. Well, it was amazing, actually. I mean, we rehearsed for whatever length of time it was, a week or week and a half, whatever, before Professor Böhm, Dr. Böhm came. And there was this anticipation, there was a buzz around the place, you know, because he hadn't been here since before the war. And I'd I think my first serious recording I bought was Zauberflöte, the yellow labeled Zauberflöte that Böhm conducted with Fischer-Dieskauer's Papageno, the biggest Papageno in the world. And this was heaven as far as I was concerned. And I'd seen the photographs of Böhm, and I imagined this huge Bavarian-style man. And instead I've got this tiny little man and, who came and dominated and, you know, was something of a tyrant in the pit when he wanted to be. But is there anyone from Covent Garden here? No, perhaps not. I'll tell you a story. It was set up for me, this particular series of performances, and just to be sure that I was right for the role, Covent Garden would send me to Paris to meet Carl Böhm, where he was currently conducting. So I was due to fly on a Friday night and sing for him, Friday afternoon, and sing for him that night at the theatre. And sometime around the mid-morning, I was called over to the office across the road in 45. And Jill Jones, who was one of the secretaries there at the time, as a stalwart of this place, said, "You're going to Paris later?" I said, "Yes." "Well, if you were to go via Le Touquet and take the train, it's only £36, as opposed to £66. And I didn't use any bad language, bad language was in my head. Anyhow, I said, no, you've got me a ticket. I'll use that ticket. Thank you very much. So I went to Paris on my £66 ticket, feeling very indignant. And I met Böhm, came into the room in his Loden coat, and I sang for about 5 minutes, and he just said, kein Problem, ich sehe kein Problem, gut, danke. That was it. So I flew back. But it all seems a long time ago now. And then he was like a grandfather to me. He wanted me to do all kinds of things after that, and he was very supportive. It was good. It was a good experience, but it was terribly slow and very old-fashioned. There was a ritardando at the end of every aria, I think, when it tailed off. And so you build up energy and you just throw it away. And that was the sad thing about it. And the girls doing the Zeffirelli duet, I remember Teresa Zilisgara and Teresa Stratas. You thought, you need oxygen cylinders to get through this. Can't do it. And if I can stand up for a moment, I remember setting off the Count's aria. Hai già vinta la causa, papam, paposa sento, in quale... So I learned to spread the phrases over a longer period.
Very different, presumably, working with Bernard Haitink on the Giovanni we've already heard, and also you've just been working with him again in Chicago.
Yes, I just came back a few days ago.
But a very different approach to Mozart.
Yes, and I was joking about it with him over dinner the other night, and there were quite a few people there, and it seemed to have come to I was prompted to say something about the maestro. And I said, well, Bernard won't mind me saying that he's often, accused himself of being a little phlegmatic at times, rather dull Dutchman, which he's not at all. Well, musically, not at all. He's a very, very... No, I mean, don't get me wrong. He's a very, very quiet and unassuming man, but you put a piece of wood in his hand and it takes fire. And there were occasions with Don Giovanni in particular, when it really did take fire. It was wonderful. That second series at Glyndebourne, out of which this recording comes, was fantastic. And then when we did the Johannes Schaaf production here, it was met with quite a lot of approval. If you could see it, it was very dark. But when we took it to Japan, I don't know whether it was on ginseng or what, but it was amazing. I mean, the excitement Rodney Milnes commented on it, I remember at the time. It absolutely fizzed along, and it has to do that. I mean, this first act finale was amazing, and it was very exciting, and it really matured by then. So being with Bernard, you're on it's a roller coaster ride, and it's absolutely fantastic. Meistersinger was the same. It's this tremendous sense of, from the bom, bom, ba bom, ba ba, and that you're with Brunelleschi or someone who's making great, great buildings. And 5 hours later, sure enough, you've got a Parthenon or something there in front of you. It's immense. And that, to have that vision and that skill, I think, is extraordinary, and not everyone has that.
Well, one of the pleasures about Mozart, and you for us, I think, in the audience, has been seeing you as Don Alfonso. I mean, a late addition for all sorts of reasons to your Mozart repertoire. But I was struck by reading something that you've invented, a little history for Don Alfonso, a little prehistory, in order for us to understand exactly what's going on.
Yes. What, did I? All right. I think I come up with these things every now and then. They may not be valid at all. There's always this discussion as to what exactly happened between he and Despina, and certainly this. The end of the piece, it's Despina who comes out of it most badly, most hurt by the experience of tangling with men and what men and this relationship is, man to woman, and in particular, he to her. And I just felt that he's gay by now, and his pupil, if you like, the man upon whom he sets his eyes, is the other baritone, Guglielmo, and he really wants to foster Guglielmo's movement through the world and point out to him the difficulties of heterosexual relationships, because I suffered terribly from it, and so on. It's absolute nonsense. absolute nonsense, but it's just fun to have a bit of background, rather in the way that when we broadcast into the piazza from here at Traviata, I think the last quarter of an hour was lost to the piazza. So, and it's customary, it's becoming a custom to take the cast out there and expose them, you know, covered in shawls for the sopranos and tenors. The baritones go out in their costumes sweating. But we go out there and see the public who've been watching the relay. But having lost the last quarter of an hour, I thought I'd better fill in the audience as to what actually happens at the end of Traviata, which is that she makes a remarkable recovery in a Swiss clinic high in the mountains, and comes back as Julie Andrews singing Edelweiss. High on a hill lived a lonely goat herd, and they lived happily ever after.